Okay, so my opponent states that there is no promise in stem cell research, and it is a promising thing. Of course, there's no hard evidence that it is going to be the cure, but same with leukemia patients taking their drugs. There's not actual the cure for it. They're taking the chance, and we want to take the chance in a much wider spread venue. Also, states within the country are already becoming proponents of federal funding without the government. California and New Jersey are already providing public funds for research facilities within their own states. Senator Bill Frist from Tennessee, the only doctor or senator in the state, has already said that he would support giving the government permission for federal funding. So people in the country are already basically proponents. We're just waiting for it to be put through. In November 6, 2008, right around presidential election, Michigan voters passed Proposition 2, allowing embryonic stem cells to be used in their state. So all these states are all ready to go. They also made the point that the UK has failed and they are doing funding. Canadian government's also doing funding, and UK hasn't failed, it's just they're still working on it. And the UK and Canada aren't the only two countries working on it. Japan, on November 6, 2008, reported for the first time that they created a functioning human brain tissue from stem cells taken from human embryos. I call that a success. They also say that there's no consent given by the embryos to become donated for embryonic stem cell research. This is actually a quote used against embryonic stem cell research, but I can use it for my purposes. It says that ultimately each of us will die, but that gives no one a right to kill us. Our society does not permit lethal experiments on terminally ill patients or condemned prisoners on the pretext that they will soon die anyway. Likewise, the fact that an embryonic human being is at the risk of being abandoned by his or her parents gives no individual or government a right to directly kill that human being first. That's not necessarily true. People do give up other people's life rights for the better of other people. When people pull the plug on brain-dead patients because eventually their organs will be no good to anyone, they're doing it to help other people. They're making the decision for someone who can't make that decision for themselves. And very few people are going to argue that they're not bettering other people's lives. Very few people are going to argue for the sake of the brain-dead person who will never wake up. Also, they're saying that adult stem cell research is just as effective as embryonic stem cell research, but George Q. Daly, who's been doing stem cell research for the past 4 years, I believe, he says, we want to be very clear. The most successful demonstrated method for creating the most versatile type of stem cells capable of becoming many types of mature human cells is to derive them from human embryos. That's because adult cells, think of it as adults. They're set in their ways. You take a liver cell, you try to convince it to become a different kind of cell. It has trouble becoming that kind of cell, and with an embryonic stem cell, you can make it become the cell you want it to become. It does hold more promise, and while adult stem cells are a good substitute, they're not what should be used. It should be embryos because they show way more promise. Also, the National Institute of Health says that it's not just we're not just using them for implantation. We're using them to make drugs as well. And no one's going to argue that heart transplants don't have the same effect. People reject heart transplants, kidney transplants. But most people are willing to take the risk. Rather than being doomed to death, they'd rather take the risk of having their kidneys turn against them. So in conclusion, yeah, we completely understand that there's risks that come with this, but when people are doomed, they're ready to take those kinds of risks. And by federally funding embryonic stem cell research, we're allowing them to take those risks.